Hello, my name is Dustin Byerly, and I want to talk to you about the big questions. Who you are, what you're doing here, where you're from, what the fuck is going on. Does anybody know? You tell me. I was raised in an alternative environment, you could say. My godfather is Kevin Ryerson. He's a trance channel. He has discarnate spirit entities that speak through him and bring messages and information about the human condition and things that can help us in our development in these lives. Kevin's work is really in line with Edgar Cayce's work, and so I've spent the last 30 years studying that information and then also looking into other books like the Nag Hammadi Library, which also has some parallels to some of that information also. Between these three sources, I feel like I found a pretty good resource of information that kind of starts to point things in a direction that maybe there's some sense that can be made out of this. Where we're at today is very confused. It's this kind of post-religion science mindset that has value in the sense of how do we make sense of the material world that we're in, and how do we construct and design things to make that easier with less suffering. But it hasn't really answered any of the big questions about why we're here or our purpose per se. Science is great for those things, but as human beings, we have an aspirational nature. We have something that is immeasurable in our hearts and our feelings towards each other and our purpose for being here. We're altruistic. We love music. We love getting lost in the moment, dance, creativity. In my research in the last 30 years, I've seen themes in regards to our origins, and the general themes I keep seeing and repeating over and over is this idea that there was a central force, or some people call first cause, somebody might say God or source, that wanted to witness itself. It wanted to explore the possibilities of creation. So for a central source, an individual entity, an individual consciousness to witness itself, it needs to first split into two, right? And this is where we get into the whole idea of Genesis, or the concept of Genesis. It's very, very fundamental in the source of who we are and what we're doing here, right? So the idea of a single entity splitting into two to mirror itself, right, is the negative and positive polarity. It's the masculine and feminine. So fundamentally, in life, we see this in everything around us, right? Duality, but essentially it's not necessarily duality, but it's just two polarities of the same creative force. It's a creative force, right? The masculine energy inseminates and is intentional and inseminates, and the feminine energy incubates and brings the creativity full term, right? So we see this in plants, we see this in creative ideas, right? We get inspired, right? And then we go through the process of investing in that idea or creative concept, and then the feminine energy is that part of us, or that part of the process that brings it into full being and into maturation. So with the masculine energy, we have to be very mindful. So masculine energy is intentional, right? We have to be intentional because whatever the masculine energy brings forth, the feminine energy is going to take it, nurture it, and bring it full term, right? So if your intentions aren't clear, you're going to have things come into life or come into your reality that don't benefit you or other people and creates harm. And then eventually the idea of karma comes into place, that in the material reality, we come face to face with our own creations to neutralize it, right? So, and this isn't about boys and girls. This isn't about gender. Masculine and feminine energy lives in everything and everyone. So it's important to understand that masculine and feminine energy aspect of all life, right? It's innate. It's fundamental to everything that we do. So life really is a creative process. It's a process of being aware of our intentions and what we bring into the world, right? Some have results that are beneficial, and some have results that continue to create more suffering. And spirituality is that process of coming to terms with that and rectifying that situation. So the idea is this original source creation created the first creation, right? The worlds, the planets, the general landscape, right? And that at that point had set out this intention to manifest these beings called souls that were androgynous. They had both masculine and feminine energy within them. And that these souls were to go out into the material worlds, or to the worlds, whatever the dimensions they were, and help co-create and help diversify the original creation. And so during this process, there was a time period where some souls got really excited, kind of moving in and out of different realms of material reality, and kind of got enamored in their own creation, right? So you hear this in kind of these stories of the fallen angels and things of that nature. One of the stories that I find the most interesting and the least talked about is the idea that as these souls kind of became entangled in matter and were unable to escape, that they identified the early primate bodies that came through natural evolution as the most capable of being an ascension vehicle for these souls to then eventually escape this pattern or karmic pattern or material realm that they became entrapped in. So the idea goes is that these souls actually kind of coax these early primates down from the trees, and energetically were able to adjust and affect their glandular functions to the point where they could kind of guide them out of the trees and kind of start to get them upright. And that at that point, they were then able to basically insert themselves into the early primate bodies and have a sensual experience. And as the story goes, for a lot of these souls, as they first came into the early primate bodies, the sensations were so strong that it was almost too much. It was almost overwhelming for them, right? And I find this story really interesting because I think about modern day anxiety and PTSD and our sensitivities to the senses, right? And how overwhelming this experience can feel sometimes. And I know for some people, it's extraordinary, So this is a really interesting story. It's something I don't hear about much. But from this point of view, both evolution and our spiritual origins kind of work hand in hand, and it answers some really big questions. It answers really big questions about why are we so unique? Why are we aware that we're aware? How is it that even though we're within a material animal body, we have these altruistic aspects to our beings and an amazing ability to manipulate our environment? It's as though we're creators, right? So really, really fascinating story. If you want to learn more about that particular creation story, that is actually in a foreword to a book that you would never expect. It's called Flower Essences and Vibrational Healing by Guru Das, and you can find that online. It's really fascinating. The foreword was written by Kevin Ryerson and channeled by Kevin Ryerson. So why does all this matter? It matters because if we can get in touch with our soul origins and kind of why we're here and what we're doing, we can start to make sense of where we're at currently and then take the proper steps to move forward, right? So, if you're a sensitive person, if you look at the world and it seems a little bit absurd, then you're going to probably tune into this kind of stuff, We're losing our sense of purpose. We're losing our identity. We're lost in technology. We're kind of just functioning like dogs, We're just carnal beings coming from this material place. And if this creation story is true, then we're responding to our animal nature. We're identifying with being an animal, even though it doesn't feel good to us. We see death and we see anger and aggression and the transient nature of reality, and it feels foreign. It feels frightening to us. And there's a reason. The reason why is because our souls are from a different place. This is not our true nature. We're visitors here, this is not our natural environment. We're on this fucking abandoned planet full of weird creatures and animals. And if that sounds strange to you, maybe you're more in touch with your soul. And if it doesn't and you're cool with it, then, you can be an animal if you want. And when I'm talking about souls, I'm not talking about established religion. I'm not talking about this patriarchal bullshit that anybody who has any sense of sovereignty or intelligence that can do the research will find very clearly that the modern Catholic Church was established by a Roman emperor in the early 300s, over 300 years after the death of Christ, is absurd, and it was a power play, and it has been since. So we didn't really know what they read during the early times of Jesus, before and after. But in 1945, the Nag Hammadi Library was discovered, and it totally blew everyone's mind. It has a narrative about Christianity and the origins of reality that have little to do with the modern church. And the church just says, well, it's heresy, it's bad, it's wrong, and nobody's really entertaining it because they have a power structure that's so in place that nobody's excited about relinquishing that, especially if the message is that the Christ is something that lives inside of everyone, and that Jesus was just an example of somebody that you can transform in the same way. You can manifest love in your life. You can manifest that unconditional love. And what he's talking about is that original divine origin, that original source space that we're from, which is just love. And that's why we're so innately tuned into the sensitivities of kindness and consideration and compassion. And it's something that we want to realize. It's something that is innate in all of us. It's something that there's a natural drive in us, and that's why. So the value in this is that when we see ourselves objectively and see ourselves as these souls with the nature of love within the material realm, having an experience within an animal body, we don't need to personalize our thoughts and our experiences. We don't need to lose ourselves to the sensational aspects of reality and be driven by obsessions and anger, fighting over things like rats. So it's kind of like, you have to choose who you're going to be. Are you going to serve, the love and the guidance inside of yourself, or are you going to serve just this emotional drive to just get things and fight over things like animals? So anyway, that's just my little synopsis, and I'll be making some more videos, but just wanted to share a little bit of information that I've gathered over the years, and you guys be good and take care of yourselves out there.